Alright, today we're gonna answer the age-old question of whether you should be opening or selling your trick-or-treat bags. But first, we have some other items to cover and people to thank. As of last week, we can now buy Ectos for less than 30 silver apiece, which are prices we haven't seen for the past 8 months, and with no immediate sink in sight, I can actually see them going even lower. Especially since now you can get 15 extra per week per account for as long as the Halloween event lasts. Falling Ecto prices directly impacts the gold per hour of meta events that mainly award pieces of unidentified gear. I'm mainly thinking about the early expansion ones such as the Octovine, as the later ones like the Giala Delves usually have a good chunk of their profit baked into the expansion exclusive currencies which can be used for crafting. A great example of this are the secrets of the obscure metas, which a lot of people have left behind by now, but they can still make you 9 gold of profit on top of what you get from the meta by crafting and selling one of the map specific weapons. Some of these metas take rather long though, but if you can join Hythar's Gate in Inner Neos right as it's happening, you should be able to get your daily congealed scream in less than 5 minutes. And if you don't want to do the metas at all, you can also quickly pop into each zone to collect the floating orbs. You won't be able to craft one of these weapons per day that way, but it's still a nice weekly supplement for almost no effort. But I digress, let's get back to Ectos, as their prices being lower also impacts the value of pieces of unidentified gear, as they're one of the main sources to get them. Over the past quarter, demand for yellows, which is a red line you see here, has gone down, while supply just keeps building up. You still get a good amount of profit for salvaging them, but buying yellows to salvage and then selling the Ectos back on the trading post is something that's gonna be difficult. You could of course also salvage the Ectos into crystalline dust, which is gonna improve that margin slightly, but even with both combined, one wrong order and your profit will just evaporate. That's once again excluding the extra gold you can make with the blue Essences of Luck by turning them into Lucky Lantern backpacks, which I already discussed at length in last week's video, but those don't sell in high enough volumes to compensate for this risk in my opinion. Green unidentified gear is a bit of a different story. Maybe not when it comes to supply and demand, which is moving in all the wrong directions to sustain their price, but the profitability of processing them is still quite good. The reason probably being that they're much more of a hassle. And don't even think about doing this without either an endless upgrade extractor and making some TOS breaking macros or a runecrafter salvage-o-matic though. A good chunk of their profit will come from the symbols and charms that you can extract, for which you will need either of those. I already mentioned crystalline dust, but since ArenaNet nuked tier 5 and 6 prices with the Return to Living World Season 4 event a couple of weeks ago, it pays staying on top of the situation. Especially since you'll be able to make less gold from Volatile Magic than before, but you can use that opportunity to stock up for the upcoming Legendary Spear. As you can see, none of the tier 6 materials have really recovered. Vicious Claws are a bit of an anomaly though, as their price increased right before the event to such a level that they're still worth more even after dropping by about 20%. A lot of the tier 5 materials went through the same roller coaster, which turns this into a rather interesting situation. See, Volatile Magic actually became worth even less than the past few weeks, as we were getting around 60 silver of profit per trophy shipment, which was already low because we used to get over 1 gold of profit. But the lower tier 5 and crystalline dust prices are now making upgrading them into their tier 6 equivalents worth doing again. As per usual, this should be mainly done with blood, scales, totems and venoms, which interestingly you can also buy from the trading post, upgrade and still sell for a profit if you got some spare spirit shards lying around. I promise we'll get to the Halloween stuff in a second, but we first have to talk about the Janthir Wilds materials, as there's been some interesting developments with those as well. Honeyflowers and especially lowland pine logs, which are the first map's materials, have been on a downward trajectory. Which again makes sense as they're really easy to farm and the expansion has been out for a while. The second map's material prices are a bit more out of the ordinary though. People have been putting in a significant amount of buy orders for the Charged Titan ore, almost quadrupling its demand, but despite this, prices continue to fall further. And for Rotted Titan Amber, a large part of the supply was taken out about 2 weeks ago, causing a 40% price increase. The easiest way to farm both of these is by simply running around the Janthir Sentry by the way, but you'll end up with a mix of both the amber and the ores. Now the real reason to go over this expansion's materials are the Mursad runestones. Last time we talked about them, they were holding steady at 90 silver, but about 2 days ago they bumped up to about 1 gold 17 each. My thesis remains the same as before though. There's about 12k for sale right now, which should be enough for anywhere from 50 to 120 legendary spears, which I don't think will be enough to service the demand once we're actually able to make the spear. Add to that more than a quarter of the supply is locked away at 2 gold or more, and we've got a perfect storm brewing for everyone who's been holding on to theirs. The only risk is if enough of you have listened to me and start dumping them en masse right as a patch goes live. But if past expansions are any indication, we should all stand to benefit greatly. Now let's finally address the trick-or-treat bags. Last week I forgot to mention whether you should open or sell them, so let's take a look at how you can make that decision for yourself so that you don't have to rely on dated sources. First of all, bags are now selling for just under 4 silver each. And if you end up deciding you want to sell them, maybe you should also contemplate waiting until the event is over. Last time it took about 6 months for their price to increase back above 5 silver and even ended up over 7 during the summer of this year. That is a lot of patience though, and if you need gold right now, this is a moot point. If you don't necessarily need the gold right now, you'll have to ask yourself the question whether you can out-earn those increases in the same time frame. If the answer is yes, sell them right now and use them for whatever other purposes you can come up with. If you choose to open the bags, you can expect around 3.5 silver worth of items without accounting for super rare drops, or about 4.5 if you get lucky and one of the high value infusions drops for you. You can easily check these values yourself on the wiki by the way, but one thing to note is that they don't assign a value for any account bound item, so the actual value per bag is higher than what's being displayed here. First thing they don't account for are the charged quartz crystals, which are worth about 2 gold each if you decide to craft celestial gear and instantly sell them on the trading post. I'm talking about instant selling because a lot of these pieces tend to get stuck if you list them. These only rarely drop though, so they'll increase the bag's value by about 10 copper at most, but that's still significant enough as this now pushes their price closer to that 4 silver point. The wiki also doesn't assign a value to the ascended crafting materials, and this is where things will get a bit more convoluted. Imperial fragments are usually a really good moneymaker, not only for the gizmos, but also for making toxic focusing crystals. Now that fragments are more readily available, they push the price of the crystals down though. I believe you should still take these into account, but you should only be crafting and selling them once the festival is over, after prices hopefully recover. Taking all of this new information into account, I'm inclined to say that you might as well open trick-or-treat bags and hope for that super rare drop, but only if you actually use a charged quartz crystal and the imperial fragments to craft into items you can sell. If you're the kind of player who deletes these, then you might as well sell the bags directly. The main item you'll get from the trick-or-treat bags are of course pieces of candy corn, and are another reason to open the bags yourself. If you don't own a candy corn gobbler yet, I strongly suggest you buy one before they go away for another year. You'll need to convert some gold to gems, but the item will give you every single buff worth having in the game for which you would otherwise spend gems or other exclusive currencies. Your main problem will probably be storage, especially if you don't have maximum bag space or enough alts and inventory space. And if this is a concern, keep the bags and only open them whenever you run out of candy corn. Every bag holds about 4 to 5 candy corn, so every 4 to 5 stacks of candy corn stays compressed into a single inventory slot this way. If you don't care for the corn and you want to offload them on the trading post, the ideal scenario would again be to wait until the festival is over as their price dropped by almost 2/3. And if storage space is once more a concern, then combining them into a cob increases their value by about 10 silver, but only if you list them of course. There are more than enough cobs being sold on a daily basis, so you should avoid instant selling them anyway. Oh, and don't forget to spend your other Halloween materials at the weekly rewards vendor, as you can get 15 ectos extra, which will probably continue impeding ecto prices for a bit longer. Last week I mentioned the Dokebi weapon set being really cheap to pick up if you were to sell your Black Line tickets afterwards. And while their price has increased, you can still get a net neutral trade if you acquire and sell mystical beast weapons instead of vintage Black Lion weapon boxes. Lastly, go and consume your Pack Scout mapping materials in Fireheart Rise this week. You'll get some baubles, which is basically free gold without needing the trading post, as well as some destroyer lodestones. The next time a good week to cash in rolls around is in about a month's time, so if you've been building up a supply of mapping materials, this is the week to get rid of them. That's it, weekly update over. Again, thank you so much to all of my channel members, as well as the people who have decided to resubscribe on Twitch despite my absence on the platform. I'm looking into slowly starting up again once I'm done tinkering with my content plans.